Growing up in that house felt like walking through a minefield barefoot, quiet, careful, and always just one wrong step away from an explosion. I was the younger child, the afterthought, the oopsie baby, as my mom once joked at a family dinner while everyone laughed. Everyone except me. From the very beginning, it was clear who the star of the family was. My older sister, Liana. She was the one who could do no wrong. Pretty, smart, outgoing. She got the birthday parties, the praise, the attention, the affection. I got leftovers if that. Our parents adored her. My mom would light up when Liana entered the room, practically gushing over whatever new achievement she'd pulled off that week. My dad, he bragged about her like she was some kind of trophy. Liana's captain of the debate team now. She's looking at Ivy League schools. He never once asked about my interests, not even in passing. When I tried to share something, maybe a sketch I'd done, a poem I wrote in English class, it was always the same reaction, a distracted nod, a half smile, and then back to Liana. But it wasn't just the indifference. It was the blame. Liana had this way of manipulating situations to make everything my fault, and she knew my parents would eat it up. One time, she snuck out to a party and came back drunk. When they asked where she'd been, she burst into tears and said I had dared her to go out. They grounded me for 2 weeks. I didn't even leave my room that night. Another time, she broke our mom's favorite vase while dancing around and blamed it on the cat who I had been feeding. So somehow, again, my fault. That was the story of my life. I was always the fall guy, always the one absorbing everyone else's mess. And the more I protested, the more they labeled me difficult, unstable, angry, like my anger wasn't a reaction, but a flaw in my character. I tried to make myself smaller, quieter. I thought if I just stayed out of the way, they'd eventually see me, maybe even care, but they never did. The more I disappeared, the easier it was for them to pretend I wasn't there at all. It's strange how your life can shatter in just a few seconds, how a single moment can burn itself so deeply into your memory that no amount of time can erase it. That day, when it all came crashing down, still plays in my head like a looping nightmare. The day had started like most others, cold, distant, suffocating. My sister had just gotten her acceptance letter to a prestigious university. It came in a thick envelope, the kind that screams success before you even open it. My parents were over the moon. There were hugs and high fives and home, made cake, balloons, streamers. Liana stood in the center of it all, glowing like she was royalty, soaking in the praise like a sponge. And me, I was a shadow in the corner. I wasn't even invited to the living room celebration. My mom actually told me, "Don't ruin the mood tonight, okay?" I nodded, said nothing, and went upstairs to hide. But a few hours later, I came back down, only to grab my headphones from the kitchen counter. That's it. I didn't speak. I didn't even look at anyone, but Liana saw me and couldn't resist. In front of everyone, she called me out, loud and cruel. "Jealous much? Don't worry, Mom. He's just upset 'cause he'll never be worth anything." Everyone laughed, even my dad, who used to tell me when I was little that I was his little genius. Something inside me cracked. Not in a loud, violent way, but like glass under pressure, quiet and deep. I said it before I could stop myself. At least I don't fake my whole life just to get attention. The room went dead still. My mom gasped. My dad's face flushed with rage, and Liana, her eyes turned to ice. I knew I had crossed a line I wasn't supposed to. I turned and walked upstairs, heart pounding in my throat. I just wanted to escape. But she followed me. I felt her behind me before I even turned the corner at the top of the staircase. Her voice was low and sharp. "What did you say to me?" I didn't answer. I didn't want to fight. I just muttered something under my breath and kept walking. Then I felt it, a hand on my back, a shove, not playful, not accidental, hard, fast. The world spun. I didn't even scream. My body just folded and fell, crashing down the steps, bones cracking, vision blurring, the world exploding in pain. And then I looked up through the haze of blood and dizziness and saw them standing there at the top of the stairs. My parents, not running to help, not panicking, just watching. Their faces weren't full of fear. They were blank, like nothing had happened at all. The sterile white walls of the hospital room felt colder than the floor I had hit. I was floating between pain and confusion, between reality and some dark fog. I couldn't move much, not without sharp jolts shooting through my spine and down my legs. My head throbbed. My vision kept going blurry. I thought I was dreaming at first, that maybe the fall had cracked my brain in two, and I was stuck in a nightmare. But then I saw the nurse. She wasn't like the others. Her eyes didn't carry that distant, polite concern. They held something deeper, recognition, like she had seen this before. She was gentle, quiet. Didn't push, she waited until my parents left the room, which they did quickly, like being near me for too long might taint them. That's when she leaned in and said softly, "You don't have to lie. I've seen this kind of thing before." I wanted to break down right then, but I didn't. I just asked, "How did you know?" She didn't answer right away. She pointed to the corner of the ceiling where a small black dome sat, one of those hospital security cameras you barely notice until someone points it out. "That camera's been recording since you got here. I saw your parents when they brought you in. No panic, no questions, just silence." She left the room and came back later with someone else, a woman in a gray blazer, calm and serious. She introduced herself as a social worker. She said the hospital had flagged my case due to the inconsistencies in the story my parents gave and the extent of my injuries. She asked if I felt safe. I told her the truth, all of it, for the first time in my life. Everything I'd buried, every slap that got brushed off, every cruel word, every silent betrayal. I expected her to give me that look most adults did, the one that said, "You're probably exaggerating." But she didn't. She listened, she believed me, and then came the third person, a lawyer. Not some random attorney from a billboard, but someone the social worker had worked with before. One who specialized in child abuse cases. He reviewed the hospital footage, examined the reports, listened to my account, and told me something no one had ever said to me before. "You're not crazy. You're not weak. You're a victim of a pattern, and you deserve justice." I sat there, still in pain, still strapped to machines and monitors, but for the first time in my life, I didn't feel powerless. I started to realize that this moment, this nightmare, might be the beginning of something else. Not just escape, not just survival, but revenge, delivered not with fists or screaming, but with truth, evidence, and fire wrapped in calm silence. The day I walked into that courtroom, I didn't feel like a victim. Not anymore. I had a cane in one hand, a brace on my leg, and scars still healing under my clothes. But I stood taller than I ever had in my life. My parents were already seated, looking around nervously like they didn't quite understand how things had escalated to this. Liana sat next to them, arms crossed, her expression cold and smug, like none of this could ever touch her. Like she was still the golden girl, still untouchable. But this time, they weren't in control. This time, the story wasn't theirs to tell. The judge called the session to order. My lawyer stood calm and confident, and began to present the evidence we had spent weeks collecting. First came the medical reports, concussions, fractures, bruises in places consistent with abuse, not accidents. Then came my own testimony, steady and direct. I told them about years of emotional neglect, the constant favoritism, the gaslighting, and finally, the day on the stairs. I could see the jury shifting in their seats. I could feel the change in the room. People were listening, but it wasn't until the footage played that everything truly began to unravel. The screen showed the hospital hallway, my parents walking beside the gurney as I was wheeled in, completely still, my face bloodied. Their expressions were emotionless, no fear, no urgency, just blank detachment. The nurse testified that she had never seen parents so unaffected by their child's trauma, but the real blow came next. Surveillance footage from across the street, from our neighbor's security system. It had a clear, shaky view through the front window of our house, where the staircase was partially visible. You could see me reaching the top step. You could see Liana following. You could see the shove. That was when Liana's mask cracked, her lawyer objected, my mother gasped, my father muttered something about angles and shadows, but no one was buying it anymore. The truth was right there, and for the first time, everyone else could see what I had lived with for years. The judge ordered an investigation. Liana was charged with aggravated assault. My parents were placed under review for neglect and enabling abuse. The social worker testified on my behalf, so did the nurse. So did a neighbor who admitted they'd seen signs over the years but were too afraid to speak. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to beg. The facts were louder than anything I could ever say. It's been 3 years since that courtroom. 3 years since the truth finally shattered the lie my family had built around themselves. Liana was found guilty and sentenced to a juvenile rehabilitation facility. She cried in court, loud, dramatic, begging for mercy, but there was none left to give. My parents lost everything, their reputations, their home, their power. The state removed them from my life permanently. They tried to reach out later, of course, letters, emails, a voicemail from my mother sobbing about how she didn't know. But I never responded. Because she did know, they all knew. They just chose not to care. I was placed with a foster family, a real one this time, one that didn't expect perfection or silence, one that made room for my pain without making me feel broken. It wasn't easy. Healing never is. There are still nights I wake up in a cold sweat, still days when I flinch at sudden sounds or unexpected footsteps behind me. But I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not invisible. I'm not alone. I finished high school. I'm in college now, studying psychology. I want to help kids like me, kids who are told to stay quiet, to smile through bruises, to disappear so others can shine. I want to be the voice I never had. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what happened, if I'd go back and stay quiet just to keep the peace. But the truth is, that fall down the stairs, as painful and terrifying as it was the moment I started to rise, because the worst thing they ever did to me wasn't the shove, it wasn't the silence, it was making me believe I didn't matter. Now I know better. And if anyone out there is watching this, feeling like they're trapped in a house that doesn't love them, please hear me. You matter. You are not crazy. You are not weak. And the truth, it will set you free. Just like it did for me.